How's it going, everybody? Well, my name's Rick, and I've just been sitting here kind of bored watching YouTube videos, watching trucker YouTube videos, and I've been watching lately this one guy. He's over a road trucker, goes all over the place, and so when I was sitting there watching him, I said, let me just go ahead and make a video myself since I wasn't doing anything. I'll tell you a little bit about myself and my experience. I'm also a truck driver. I've been driving trucks since 1999, June of 1999. I started driving in Louisiana, my home state. I'm originally from New Orleans. You can probably tell by the accent. Currently, I live in New York. So, long story behind that, but I'm not going to get into that anyway. But as of recently, I've just recently been, I was a owner-operator for a number of years, and I pretty much had to stop. Number of reasons. Mainly because I couldn't make any money doing it, and didn't have too many good experiences with it. Maybe it's because of the economy. Maybe it's because I wasn't doing something right, or I don't know. Well, whatever reason it is, I had to stop because can't make enough money. I had a lot of issues with the company I was leased on to with my last truck, and it was a constant struggle with those people. And I don't want to say what company they are, but I couldn't turn a corner working for those guys, working with them. They just made it really, really hard, and I just didn't see the point in continuing on. So I had to get a company driver job. It's a company I used to work for some years back, and I looked them up, and they hired me. So I'll be doing that now, and hopefully I can. I should be able to make more money working with them, because I have none right now because I spent all my money having my own truck. Everything that I made went right into the truck, and like I said, the company that I was contracted with, I don't know if it's because of how they were set up, but I just found it very, very difficult to turn a profit, and I just decided it wasn't worth it any longer. So I just went ahead and told them not doing it anymore, and I gave them their truck back. Like I said, I started trucking back in 1999, and it's always been a goal of mine to own my own truck and to retire as an owner-operator, an independent contractor, or whatever, however you want to call it. And I've done it several times, and each time was a different experience. My the last truck I had before this one that I just gave up, I completely owned. I didn't owe anybody for it. I wasn't financed. I paid cash for it, and I went to a dealership right outside of New Orleans and bought it. And as time went on, I noticed there was problems with this truck, and the longer that I had it and the more that I ran it, the more problems that it gave me, and I had to give it up because I was putting more money into it than I was making, and then that's I had got this last truck that, like I told you, that I gave up. Why people decide to buy their own trucks or lease their own trucks? Everybody has their own reasons. Um, I don't know. It's just something that I always wanted to do. Maybe I'll do it in the future again. I don't know, but at this point in my life, uh, I can't afford to do it anymore. Maybe when I leave the Northeast area, which I'm planning on doing, hopefully within the next 5 years, leaving New York, and maybe I'll do it again there when I leave here. I don't know, so I'll have to reassess that to see if it's worth it or not. But right now, at this stage in my life, it's not worth it. I don't see the point in continuing on. So my whole goal is to uh, make more money, to do different things, and you can make money as a truck driver. You just have to be willing to put yourself out there. Um, a lot of people think that, oh, it's easy being a truck driver. All you do is just drive. Anybody can drive. Try it. Find out yourself. That's a big complaint that a lot of us have out there. Um, we're out there rolling down the highway, and people do things that just blow your mind. Up here in the Northeast, because it's such a high volume of people, you deal with a lot of issues. Here in the Northeast, people are they're in a rush, and it's very fast. It's a very fast-paced society up here, and I tell people all the time, the worst drivers in this country has to be in Connecticut, in my opinion. Now, I haven't driven in every single state, but I've driven in most of them, and by far, in my opinion, my personal professional opinion, the things that I've seen and witnessed in Connecticut, those people can't drive. They don't think, and I just feel that they give anybody a license there in Connecticut. So many of you truck drivers, if you're watching this, you probably can agree with me on this, and you've probably seen some things yourselves. But I have stories that I can tell, the things that I've seen in just Connecticut alone. But that's one of the states that I drive in a lot. So I probably see more than a normal over-the-road trucker, because maybe somebody might be from the West Coast, comes on this side of the country, and he might see some things. But for somebody that drives on this part of the country, he could probably see a lot more, because these states are a lot closer and a lot smaller than a lot of the other states in the country. So, like I said, I've driven not in every state. I've driven exclusively on the eastern half of the country. When I say the eastern half, I'm like from the Mississippi to the East Coast is basically the majority of the states, that all of the states on that side, I can definitely say I've driven in. And that's as a company driver and an owner operator. More as an owner operator, because I did more over the road work as an owner operator than I have as a company driver. So I consider myself a highwayman. I love the open road. If it wouldn't be for my personal circumstances at home, I probably would be out there 2-3 weeks at a time, because I enjoy it that much. But I should have. I had an opportunity when I was a younger man, because people who aren't truck drivers might not know this, but a person can't drive a truck until they're 21. In Canada, they can drive when they turn 18, but for the United States, you can't get your license until you turn 21. That's mainly for like insurance reasons. Insurance companies don't want to cover younger drivers because they feel that younger drivers take more risks, especially young men. They take more risks. They're not as serious minded and as cautious as someone who might be older. So they figure at age 21, their mentality will level out a little bit more than if they're 18. But I remember when I got out of high school, I've always had an interest in driving trucks. And where I grew up at, there was a truck driving school. And when I graduated from high school, I went and talked to the administrators for the school, and they informed me that I need to be 21. But they kept my application on file. Well, I got into some other things, and I was actually working I was trying to break my teeth in the electrical construction trades, and I was working with an electrical union, and I was planning on entering an apprenticeship program. That's an apprenticeship program with the union, and so I got a telephone call from the truck driving school right as I turned 21. It might have been to the day, but it was right near when I turned 21. Well, when I was 21, I didn't have a family. I didn't have any financial obligations like children, a wife, a girlfriend, or anything for that matter. I was just on my own. I was living at home with my parents at the time. I was trying to get my life together, and so when I got the telephone call, they asked me if I was interested in coming. Well, like I said, I was trying to enter into an apprenticeship program with the electrical union, and I told them, thank you, but no thank you. Well, that didn't work out with the electrical construction trade, and after that, I bounced around here, there. So it wasn't until I got married, and I was still trying to find, because I really didn't have, the only experience in anything that I had was the electrical trade, and I was a butcher. I was a meat cutter for like 6 years before, or 3 years before I got married, and 3 years after, and it just wasn't paying enough. And I remember talking with my wife, and just lamenting to her that I wish I would have went to, and I wish I would have got some schooling, went to learn something. And she looked at me, she asked me, she's like, well, what was the one thing that you always wanted to do but you never got a chance to do? And the first thing I thought about was driving trucks. And that's what I told her. She's like, well, maybe you should do that. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So that's what I did. I got jobs in the construction trade, but my goal was to save money so that I can go to truck driving school. And when I got to that goal, then I was able to go. And so it was an interesting thing of how that happened. I actually didn't pay for my schooling. I got the government to do that for me. There was each state has a program that they fund individuals who may be disadvantaged, may have lost a job, and they help individuals to get schooling, to pick up a trade and things like that. And you don't owe that money back. It's not a loan. I guess you could say it's like a grant, I guess you could say. So what I did was I I started work at, like I said, I was doing construction, and I started working with this company, and it was in the oil field. And anyone who knows about the oil field knows that it's up and down. So I told my wife, and actually my dad worked for the company, and he mentioned to me that they were, hiring for laborers. I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds good. So I told my wife, I said, well, let me go work over there, save up the money, and when I save up the money, I can quit and go to the school, or if I get laid off before I save up the amount of money that I need, I can go apply for the government assistance program. Well, I got laid off before I saved up the money, so that meant that I can apply for the government assist program, and that's what I did. I qualified. I got the funding. I went to a 2-month school, and actually they paid me like a small, what do you would call it, a stipend, to go to school. So not only did I didn't have to pay for the school, they paid me to go to school. So that was pretty neat, and I made good grades and everything. I passed with flying colors, and I started trucking, and that was when I got my license was in June of 1999. So so I worked for a number of years as a company driver, and I was actually working for a good company. They paid me well, and it was it was like regional driving. I drove mainly the southeast. Well, I started developing a desire to have my own truck. Watching all these guys running down the road in their trucks, and they'd be chromed out, lights all over so I was just fascinated by it. So I started to develop the desire to have my own truck. My wife wasn't too crazy about it, and I was like, oh, it'll be fine, it'll be great. And so at the time we were living in the Birmingham, Alabama area, and there was a local company, and they haul flats, because in Birmingham there's a lot of flatbed freight moving, steel, coil, cement, that sort of thing. A lot of big flatbed companies are out in Alabama, because there's a lot of freight moving out of Birmingham area, the central Alabama area. And so there was this one company that I used to see all the time, and I used to pass them up going to work. One of the companies I used to work for, they were like right next to this company, and I noticed that there was a truck that was sitting out in the front of the yard, and it had a for sale sign. It had a for sale sign on it. I was like, let me go, talk to them about it, see how much they wanted for it. Well, I went in and talked to them about it, and it seemed, that they were going to lease out that truck. It was like lease purchase program. For those of you who don't know what a lease purchase is, basically you pay the company for the truck. You work for the company, and they take a certain amount out for the truck, and after a certain period of time, however much that they sell the truck to you for, it's usually about no more than 3 years. A lot of lease purchase trucks usually. So, but this particular truck was actually owned by the company. It was an older model truck. It was a Freightliner. It was an older model truck, and they wanted to put newer trucks on their fleet. And so I was, they told me how much it was, and that they were willing to finance it from me, and with a certain amount down. And I was like, man, that's great. That's a great idea, man. I'm going to do that. You live and you learn. So, long story short, that didn't work out. Couldn't make any money. I had some issues, not too many, but I had some issues with the truck, and so I just decided it's better for me to count my losses and just. So I was able to get another trucking job. It was actually a grocery warehouse that I worked for, and so I worked for them for a couple years, but the bug was still in it. I just wanted my own truck. Well, Freightliner is a brand of truck. For those of you that don't know, Freightliners usually have deals for people that have bad credit or who want to break their teeth into the owner-operator game. And basically, you put a small amount down on the truck, and they give it to you, and you pay them like. Usually, it all depends on the truck itself too. You know, the newer the truck, the more expensive it is. Well, the one I had, it was a Freightliner Century. So, I just had to put $1,000 down on it, and my monthly note was $1,600 dollars a month. So, I got on with this flatbed company out of Memphis. They did a lot of hauling out of Birmingham, and they had a terminal there as well. And everything was great. I was working, was getting freight, and one day I was coming out of St. Louis one morning, and as I was going down the highway at 6 o'clock in the morning, it was raining. And as I'm going down the highway, and you know how when it's raining and it's dark, it's hard to see. It's, sometimes. And so I'm going about 60 miles an hour down the road, and all of a sudden I see this guy running on the shoulder of the road, waving his arms, flailing his arms up in the air like this, waving me to get over, And as I'm looking down the road, I notice there's two cars in my lane, and the only thing that I could do, and not only were there two cars in the lane that I was in, there was a woman standing outside of her car in the middle of the road behind her car. Okay, the only place for me to go was in my left lane. So that's what I did, because if I don't go in the left lane, well, the guy on the shoulder, I can't go over to the shoulder because he's running down the shoulder of the road. So if I go on the shoulder, I kill him. I don't wreck my truck, but I kill him. If I stay in my lane, I wreck into these two cars and I kill the lady. The only thing I could do was get into the left lane. Well, there was a car trailing me right on side of me. He didn't notice. He wasn't paying attention to what I was doing or what was going on ahead of me. And when he saw me coming over into the left lane, he panicked, jammed on his brakes, and my back trailer tire hit him, and he went rolling. He flew. He went rolling into the median, flipped that car a couple of times. I got this. I have this huge 40,000-pound steel coil on my truck. So, fortunately, no one in that instant, the guy running on the shoulder, the lady standing in the middle of the road, or the guy that I hit, nobody was hurt. But I lost my job. I now became a liability to the people that I was working for. And that stayed on my record. That stayed on my record for, oh goodness, 3 years. Well, it stayed on my driver record. Now, in companies, it'll stay on your record for longer than that, 7 to 10 years. And on top of that, because I was immature, not that I'm that much mature now, but back then I was a lot more immature back then. I made a lot of mistakes, and I had one too many speeding tickets on my record, and I was already under pressure to fly under the radar at that point. And now when I get into this accident, I'm a liability now, because what's going to happen is the guy that I hit in the car, even though it wasn't my fault, he's going to come at the company to try to sue them to get money. And that's exactly what happened. So I had to give that up, because you can't pay your truck notes if your truck is sitting in you. So I went 3 months without paying my truck note. Got behind on my payments because I wasn't working. Nobody was giving me a job, so got repossessed. And they called me up and, gave me an ultimatum: if you don't pay this amount, square up, then we're gonna have to repossess it. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll save you the trouble. I'll bring it back to the dealership. And that's what I did. So that was back in 2005 when that happened. So then I moved up here to New York, because my father-in-law, he died, and then my mother-in-law, she got sick, and so me and my wife, we've been up here since '05, since all of those things happened. So I worked a little while, about 6 years. I worked as a company driver out here in New York. Peddling freight is what we call it. Basically, city pickup and deliveries, that sort of thing. And I just stayed here. I didn't venture out any further than New Jersey. So, but I started getting tired of, working for people, and I just wanted to have, my own truck. So that's what I did. So in 2010, I bought my third truck. It was a Freightliner Columbia, and I bought it in New Orleans. That's where I bought it from. And for the first few months, I don't know, I would say about 3-4 months into it, no problems. It was fine. Then in about the winter time of that year of 2010, started having issues, and you kind of expect that you're going to have issues, especially if you're running out, because I was doing over the road work, so you kind of expect that you're going to have issues, and so you prepare yourself mentally and financially for it. But this thing, when it started breaking down, it would break down about every 2 weeks. I kid you not, I'm not exaggerating about this. I mean, it seemed like every day I was having some kind of issue that I was dealing with. Bottom line is, the engine that was in this truck, it was a Mercedes engine. Now, the worst thing in my opinion that Freightliner has done is putting a Mercedes-Benz engine in their trucks. These are engines that they use in Europe, and it's a whole nother. In Europe, driving is a whole lot different than driving in the United States. And the way they make these engines, they're not durable. I went online to research about the particular engine that was in my truck, and they say they weren't good past 500,000 miles. And you're like, you need these engines to last forever, especially if you're just a small guy who don't have deep pockets like a lot of companies out there do, and they can dump money into their trucks and feel nothing when they do it. But you need a durable engine. So whenever this thing broke down, it wasn't a couple hundred here, a couple hundred. I'm talking about nothing less than $3,000 out of your pocket each time this thing breaks down. Okay? And then you got to hope that the mechanic that you call, if you're out there in the middle of nowhere, is going to want to work on your engine, because they don't like messing with Mercedes-Benz engines. That happened to me. I was right outside of Nashville, Tennessee one day. I was taking a trip down to the Gulf Coast area from up here in the Northeast, and I got to Nashville, and I lost power. Well, I thought that it was my turbocharger. That's what gives the engine power. I was like, oh man, my turbo went out on me. So I pulled it alongside the road, called the mechanic up, and he asked me what was going on. I said, oh man, blew my turbo. My turbo went out on me. And he's like, what kind of engine do you have? And I told him. He says, not your turbo. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, well, he said, no, I'm going to tell you what it is. He said, I'll come look at it. He said, I'm going to tell you what it is right now. And he says, and because it's that kind of engine, he said, I'm not going to work on it. He said, but I'm going to come out and check it out for you. So he told me exactly what it was, and he came out there and he checked it out, and he had me do a test on the turbo, and sure enough, it wasn't my turbo. It was something inside the engine with the exhaust brake, with a valve that's important to the compression of the engine. And he told me, he says, you're going to have to bring this thing to the dealership and get it fixed at the dealership. And I was like, ugh. Anytime you deal with a dealership on anything, you are going to get hit hard, because they're not cheap. Their labor's not cheap. The parts aren't cheap. But my particular engine will require that I take it to the dealership and get fixed at the dealership. Like $4,000 right there. Prior to that, I had an issue with with the engine itself. The top part of the engine needed to be replaced. The pistons inside of the engine needed to be replaced, and that I got hit for over $8,000 on that. And when the very last issue that I had, which made me decide to give it up, was a major issue. The mechanic that I use here here at home, and I brought the truck to get inspected, to get the state inspection, and he calls me up to let me know. He said, look, I have good news and bad news for you. And he said, what do you want first? I said, well, tell me the bad news. What's wrong with it? He said, you got a crack in your block. The block of the engine developed a stress fracture on it. And basically what that means is that when you have a crack in your block, that means the engine gets no compression. The fluids can leak out of it. And the bottom line is the engine is garbage. You need to replace the whole engine, period, all of it. That's like $12,000 to $15,000 right there. And I looked at him, I asked him, well, what's good news? He says, I want to buy it from you. So I sold it to him, and I got it off my hands. I'm like, I can't deal with that, so so all said, from purchasing the truck to all the maintenance, just between purchasing and the maintenance, just that alone costed me over $50,000. Just that. and I was broke. I'm like, no, I can't. And you know, and the thing was breaking down on me all the time. So I'm like, I can't do it. So I did that for 2 years, and I worked. After that, I went and got a job as a company driver again. But I couldn't get it out of my head. I couldn't. It wasn't out of my system. I had to have another truck. And then the last truck that I had, nothing wrong. This truck was the best truck that I ever had. Gave me no problem, no real major issues outside of simple maintenance and things like that. But they wouldn't pay me. I couldn't get the loads to make my bills. And same story. Ended up spending all the money that I had for nothing. So now I'm back to square one again. So, like I said, I'm working with a company that I had worked for years ago before I started working as an owner operator, and so hopefully I can turn a corner doing this, and maybe in the future again, sometime down the line, I can get back to doing it. I don't know. We'll see. So yeah, that's my story, and that's where I'm at now. So hopefully, everybody out there who has their trucks are able to do their thing with no problems. More power to you, and I hope everything goes well for you. And I never discourage people. Or like, people ask me all the time, why you want to have your own truck? Man, it's too expensive. Yeah, but to each his own, right? So I'll never tell somebody that wants to to do it, oh, don't do it. It ain't worth it, because for them it's probably different. Each individual is different. So hope everything works out, and we'll see what happens in the future. So all you truckers out there, stay on the road. I'm with you. Be careful in Connecticut. And we'll talk with y'all next time.